Hello once again, and welcome to Heroes and Droids, your guide to movies and TV shows about superheroes, sci-fi, Disney, and action. From Marvel to DC, from Star Wars to Star Trek, from James Bond to the Fast and Furious. We will review the theatrical films and streaming delights you care about most. And this week we're reviewing Andor, Season 1, Episodes 1 through 3, streaming now on Disney+. Arguably, you could say Andor, the movie. But we'll get into that. But I am your host. Before we get into that, I got to introduce everybody. I'm your host, Dark Rotten, and joining me tonight are the crew, starting off with Chris Slattery, the Slattman. How you doing, sir?
Good. It's good to be back.
Yes, welcome back. Coming back for some Star Wars.
I can't say no to Star Wars.
Can't say no to Star Wars. All right, well, we'll find out what you thought here in a minute. Also joining us is award-winning filmmaker Christopher G. Moore. How you doing, sir?
I feel like you paced that like it was 3 episodes of the show.
Maybe I did.
I don't know how to take that.
Maybe I did. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing okay. Although I did find it funny earlier when you said Andor, it almost sounded like this show and/or,
which it actually is spelled out that way. Oh my gosh. All right. What we're going to do tonight is we're going to review these 3 episodes as if they were one movie, because they were released all at once, and they kind of are one movie. We'll get into that. So we're going to do it all as one big bulk. We're going to start off giving you our first impression of these 3 episodes, and that will be spoiler free. And then we'll dive into a discussion where we get into spoilers. I'm curious, Christopher. This show is a little bit different than the previous Star Wars series. Are there Easter eggs to be had?
I did find a few. Yeah, I mean, yeah, there are some.
Okay, well, we're gonna have some Easter eggs. I wasn't sure. I didn't see any myself, so you're gonna surprise me. And then we'll wrap things up with our score 1 to 5 and our favorite scene. And of course, we hope you enjoy not only this review but many others that we have on the site. We're also doing She-Hulk, by the way, except for this guy. And if you do enjoy the reviews, we hope you hit the like, the subscribe, and share with a friend. Every little click helps. And of course, we'd love to hear your comments down below. Let's get into it, shall we? Let's start off with the card. Boom. Andor 2022 Disney Plus, season 1, episode 1 is Kassa. Season 1, episode 2 is That Would Be Me, and episode 3 would be Reckoning. Of course, it's streaming on Disney Plus beginning September 21st, 2022. All 3 episodes were directed by Toby Haynes, and all 3 episodes were written by Tony Gilroy. And of course, it's based on Star Wars by George Lucas and follows the characters from what movie, Christopher G. Moore?
Rogue One.
The cast includes Diego Luna, Kyle Soller, Adria Arjona, Joplin Sibtain, yes, James McArdle, Robert Fanstart, Stellan Skarsgård, and Fiona Shaw.
You pronounce them like they're Star Wars, like alien characters.
Yes, a couple of apostrophes. And all right, the synopsis for all 3 episodes are: Cassian Andor's reckless search for answers about his past makes him a wanted man. Cassian attempts to lay low on Ferrix as agents of the law close in. And Cassian's desperation to avoid arrest leads him to a mysterious man with unknown connections. Sounds naughty. All right, let's find out what we think of this. Chris Slattman, what was your first impression of these 3 episodes? What did you think of Andor, the movie?
And the
movie.
It's really freaking good.
Okay, freaking good even.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's excellent. It's got amazing characters. It's got a very well written dialogue. It's got amazing sets. I was blown away by the set design and just how everything looks in this world, in this show. And I guess this is a teeny tiny spoiler, but you know, most people already know about it. This was exactly the itch that I didn't know I need scratched
Oh wow.
with a show in the Star Wars universe that has nothing to do with the Force or the Jedi or the Skywalkers or anything like that. I know that's a little controversial, but it's just nice to, you know, it's just nice to have a show that focuses on normal people.
It does actually. There's, you know, it's shy of aliens and it's shy of droids. We have, you know, one droid that we'll talk about, but
Well, there
Yeah.
are aliens though.
there are,
Yeah.
but they're not as prominent as they have been.
Yeah, but see, the aliens and the droids don't bother me, but
Mhm.
reliance on the Skywalker bloodline and all of that stuff just kind of gets old fast, I guess. And it's really nice and it's really refreshing to have something that doesn't really rely on that and it's able to do its own thing and not rely on lore and not rely on, you know, 40, 50 years worth of like build up and just stuff.
Stuff.
It's so refreshing. It's so nice. And as much as we all love the Empire, it was also nice that there was not a single stormtrooper.
Oh wow, you're right. Was there?
The Empire was felt, but it wasn't seen.
Right.
And it was so nice. It's
Right.
just I can't say enough nice things about this and it's just yes.
Wow, you're gonna make me rethink that. That you're right. It was presence, but it wasn't. Yeah, awesome. Christopher G. Morser, what was your first impression of Andor?
Well, I'll
Let's say it
say
fast now. Andor.
Andor and slash or, which Rogue One is RO if you put it backwards. Blew your mind, didn't I? Maybe I should have put that as an Easter egg. That's why I'm the big wig. I don't know what that means. I enjoyed this. Now, I think one of the big things that a lot of Star Wars fans are talking about, and there's been a few that says that they enjoy this, but it's not Star Wars. You know what I mean? Because I think a lot of people, they just associate Star Wars with a specific type, which I think a lot of the shows have kind of like checked off all the boxes. And I'm not meaning like Jedi type stuff. I'm just the normal type of stuff, you know, cutesy droids and all this stuff. It's supposed to be family shows. This is not a family show. You start off an episode where an animal pees on a robot. You know, people have sex in this universe. You know, but you see a lot of faces of dead bodies in the show, and it does not shy away from the violence. It doesn't shy away, and it's, you know, there's not a stylistic fighting. You know, people doing flips for no reason. And you also get to sort of see the underbelly of certain areas. You get to sort of see, but also it does have a groundedness to it, and not just in a gritty way. It just has a grounded element to it, which you probably could just say this could be set in some sci-fi universe, and it would be just okay. It would be the same, even though it's. But I think for me, and I had the discussion recently with a friend of mine. They were talking about like, oh, I don't know, I don't want serious Star Wars. I don't want this. It's just not Star Wars. It's like, you know, I'm a lifelong Star Wars fan, and I think Star Wars deserves to have different stories told in this universe, whether it be serious, whether it be goofy, whether it be comedic, whether it be horror. Call me Lucasfilm. So there's a lot of elements. There's a lot of stories to be told in this universe that don't necessarily have to be pigeonholed into one area. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. Now, granted, it is a slow burn of a show. And even though Chris was talking about it's not kind of bogged down, it's still a prequel to the Rebellion. It's basically Rebellion, the prequel, because you get to sort of see why people became part of the Rebellion. You also get to sort of see how some people, like you have this corporate security people that are sort of like the beginnings of how the imperial, officers and stuff, how they became what they are. So there's a lot of different elements of the beginnings of the bad and the good, but mostly more the good. And you got to sort of see like Cassian and how he sort of became this big part of the rebellion that they ended up being in Rogue One, because this takes place like 5 years before the Battle of Yavin.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I really enjoyed this, and I think more so because of the production value. They didn't use those big video screens for this series. They used practical sets. They
Nice.
used green screen. And I don't know about you guys, but this felt bigger than The Mandalorian. This felt more like Star Wars look wise, but also just more epic. To where I was like, wow, that looks real, because as much as the video wall screen stuff works, it also has limitations when it comes to depth, the type of different depth of field type stuff. You can only do a certain type of look with that. And this, they feel like people walking through sets. And then also there's those big epic shots where it feels like the old matte paintings of old,
Yes.
There's big shots, and so it felt, even though some say this doesn't feel like Star Wars, it felt more like Star Wars to me, to where I loved a lot of the new ships. I loved a lot of the production design. I loved a lot of the costumes, and I know as much as I love the Imperial officers and stormtroopers, the corporate security has some awesome new outfits. I was like, I want those shoes that guy has.
Tailored just a little bit.
Yeah, well tailored, yeah. But also just the other outfits like Cassian Andor. I was looking, I may have to cosplay Cassian Andor, because I've got a beard going on, and I can just put a little hood on, and I mean, a lot of the outfits and stuff, a lot of the people wearing it almost feels like it's also just, I don't know, some of the production design looks better than some of the movies. I'll just say it right here, some of the sequels. So I don't know, I really enjoyed this. I did have some issues a little bit with Cassian Andor, how he was kind of like being an idiot by the end, but that was just maybe a character issue I had. But overall, I enjoyed it, and I think this should have been stitched together as a movie, like a first movie before I started. It's a movie that's a movie, but it's a Harry Styles joke. If they should have stitched together the first part as a movie and just had all the episodes come after it, like they used to do miniseries back in the day. Yep. But anyway, I really enjoyed it. Sorry for going long.
I enjoyed this too. To me, this is better TV than the other. I mean, I've enjoyed the other shows, and they're higher in the fantasy, and the characters we know, they feel a lot more familiar. But in a way, this is far more drama based and character based, and we're really into it. I don't know if I want to give up Mandalorian just yet. I'm not saying that. I really love the Mandalorian show, and Obi-Wan and Boba Fett too, but I don't want a whole bunch of that, right? I know that we're going to get Ahsoka, and Ahsoka's going to be more in that vein too. So having this is great, right? You've got to balance it out, and the worlds feel gritty and dirty. Like that was one of the big things, because when Star Wars came out, up until then, sci-fi was always like clean and pristine,
yeah.
Right? And then Star Wars, showed it like a real world, and this one goes back to that quite a bit, especially on what was it Felix or Relics or whatever the planet is that we spend most of the time on. The town feels gritty, the ships feel gritty, the even like the transportation that they use feels worn and gritty, so it feels there's an authenticity to the show. I do think the pacing is going to be a problem with a lot of fans, and just any the audience that may be going to Disney Plus is probably wanting something a little more snappier. But I think it's worth it. I think it's worth sitting down and really absorbing this the show and the characters. The acting across the board is fantastic. I love Stellan Skarsgård. It's fun to see Fiona Shaw back, or not back, but coming over from, I guess, Harry Potter world, right?
Mhm.
But Diego Luna is so wonderful in this. He is so good, and he just there's an interesting dynamic behind his eyes. It's kind of this. I don't know. I can't put my finger on it, but I was going to say kind of a sorrow, but that's not entirely correct. It's more like he's kind of lost, and I think that's the point of this first season is going to be finding out who Andor is, and he's going to discover who he is along as we do along with him. So, and I'll tell you. Okay, one last thing. What really impressed me was the deputy inspector for the Primor Authority. What is his name? Cyber Karn, the Imperial officer, if you will, who basically goes against his superior to actually look into the murders and chases down Andor. I think he's as key to these first 3 episodes as Andor is. I don't know if anybody else agrees with that, but I really enjoyed his part. It really helped balance the show as well.
Well, I almost feel like that he might be somebody who might help the rebellion at some point.
You think he's going to? I kind of feel like he's going to switch sides. Yeah, he kind of has that feeling to him, but he's not right away. I mean, he's very much. He's a by the book kind of guy. But
as long as he's not like Hux, it's me. I'm the spy.
I feel like the writing's a little bit better than that for this, so we might be in luck.
Yeah, the dialogue and the writing is strong.
It is. I mean, but it is. Again, it is more dramatic, and I think, but also even just, I mean, there's the whole flashback stuff. There's no dialogue, and they don't even put subtitles. So and I think you have to be very confident to put visuals on the screen to know what's happening. Because then even I was like, is this a real language or is? although I did hear that the whole reason they did the backstory is to explain Diego Luna's accent. So I was like, with all the accents of like British accents and Irish accents, and that's the one accent you have to explain. But I did like that to where it's almost like a Lord of the Flies kids, where they, because they're actually, you can see they're wearing like adult outfits that are too big for them and stuff. So, but yeah, it's a well-written show, and it also just, it feels like a real universe. Cause I think a lot of times in Star Wars, we think, oh, that's sci-fi, or these are space wizards, or there's this or that. But this is like, you see the worker sect, you see, I think my favorite's like the red light district where there's like prostitutes and bubbles.
Oh, that's weird,
I never thought I would see, or like a holographic stripper. I never thought in Star Wars I would be seeing that level of underworld. I was like, go ahead, Star Wars. Go ahead, Disney Plus.
They actually said the words that they were at a brothel, which is just like, holy crap. And then they said shit.
Yeah. I knew it wasn't when we actually saw urine from a dog. That dog urinating on a robot.
Well, whatever.
Or the later on, like I mentioned, where the girl's like, let's have sex, and I'm like, whoa.
I got busy.
Hello.
Okay. So before we get into some of the Easter eggs, I think there's an interesting parallel that I'm a little nervous about, but there's an interesting parallel to the backstory of Cassian Andor to Mandalorian. They basically are at a young age taken in by a somebody who isn't their parents and brought up alone, right? But it's a parallel at this point. It's a parallel. It's not a copy, right? So it's more interesting at the moment, but I'm a little trepidatious about that particular element. I don't know if it was needed.
Well, Well, it's
Like
about
you said.
every Star Wars story. There's
Well, that's
somebody
true.
taking some under
That's
their
true.
wing.
That's
Because Luke
true.
Skywalker is basically the Guru Grogu of,
Well,
of
that's
the
true.
original trilogy.
That's true. And he's
And,
also the same way, right?
Yeah, and I'm pretty, and I'd have to vet this, but I'm pretty sure there was a run of comics like that actually kind of hinted at him having this sort of backstory as well. So
Okay.
like they like it was known. I'm pretty sure it was known that he had an adopted mother through the comics, but they didn't know how they met. You know,
Okay.
it was one of those things.
Yeah, and Fiona Shaw did a great job. But let's go ahead and get into some spoilers, Christopher G. Moore. What have you got for us?
I mean, this isn't a Easter egg fest, so it definitely.
Oh yeah,
feels
Easter egg. That's
different.
just spoilers.
But well, first of all, if you pay attention to the little Lucasfilm intro where it has all the different like lights and the different characters, BT Emo is part of that. He's in that now for this series.
And who's BT Emo?
BT Emo is the robot, the new robot that we have.
The little trash can robot?
Yeah. But and here's the next Easter egg. There's a moment where BT Emo is moving along through all this garbage, and it feels like a homage to Wall-E. Also, if you look at the robot, it has the red colors and stuff. It feels like it's also homage to a film called The Black Hole. If you remember the robot.
Oh my goodness, yes.
So that was always I was a big fan of that movie growing up, which was a ripoff of Star Wars. So now Star Wars is ripping off Disney. It's all cyclical.
It's like poetry. It rhymes.
I know. Circle of life. Also, all the title fonts for the different planets is the same fonts they use in Rogue One. So we have its connection to Rogue One.
Nice.
Other than the OR being in Andor. I'll keep pimping that until it's a real thing. Let's see. The ship that Cassian sleeps in is the same ship he was brought to that planet via. Also, that ship, if you look to the right of that ship, there is a escape pod that's laying there. The same escape pod that was, well, the same type of escape pod that we saw in Star Wars: A New Hope that C-3PO and R2-D2 escaped.
Oh wow, those little funny little
circular
monkey barrels looking things.
Yeah, yes, monkey barrels. I'm sure that's the technical term. Now there's a lot of Arabesh throughout this thing. I won't go into it too much because it's just like, repair shop and all the different things. But the Bix Colleen, that's the friend of Cassian, that her workplace. If you translate the Arabesh, it translates to something like that. This is where you can get power conversions done, for your ships. Let's see. The moment where Colleen wakes up after a night of lovemaking, she's like, tell me you have calf. And calf is actually a caffeinated coffee drink in the Star Wars universe that was brought about in the books. And I think this is actually the first time we've seen it in live action.
Interesting.
So that's a nice little thing, how people are always saying like books aren't canon. Well, they can actually pick and choose what they want and make it canon if you want to. So calf is now, so I'm sure we'll see it in Galaxy's Edge. Let's get a cup of calf with blue milk in it. Yum. Let's see. Now I don't know if this is meant to be a reference, but the point where they tie the ship to a line that's tied to a bunch of garbage,
yes,
possibly could be a callback to George Lucas's film American Graffiti, where he ties a police car to a rope. So that could be a reference to that, seeing it, this is based on George Lucas's vision. So who knows? We're reaching here, aren't we?
I like it though. I like
it. There's the ship that Cassian Andor escapes on when he's a kid. It has a dream catcher hanging, and that dream catcher looks like it has a kyber crystal in it.
Oh, nice.
So that's kind of cool. And last but not least, some people have always called Star Wars a space western. And what does Stellan Skarsgård do when he goes to a ship to make it open? He whistles just like it's a horse.
Oh, that's right, he did. Oh my gosh.
So he whistles, and then the door opens on it. So it's kind of interesting that we have these space western type stuff, and that westerns actually came from Akira Kurosawa, and Lord George Lucas stole stuff from Akira Kurosawa for Star Wars, and now we get sort of like a western type thing happen, which I don't know. I don't know about you guys. I kind of laughed when he did that. I was like, oh, that's a first. So anyway, those are a lot of the Easter eggs through all 3 episodes.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun watching him ride off on the speeder too.
Yeah, that was a beautiful shot.
Well, there's a lot of beautiful shots because I think there's actually, for me, I don't know about you guys, but I felt like there was new stuff I hadn't seen in the Star Wars universe. Like when they're flying across the farmland, they're divided up into different segments.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the most beautiful shots I've ever seen in Star Wars.
Yep, and the way the scooter was like separating them.
Yeah, and there's like that the corporate security ship that had the little, that was like almost like a square. There's like some,
looks like a pyramid to me,
or a pyramid. I don't know. I like the designs of, like, I want that ship.
Well, luckily you can get the little teeny tiny ships that they fly down on in Legos.
Yeah. Well,
speaking of firsts though in the Star Wars universe, this was the first time that we've ever seen BBY on screen in a Star Wars on a Star Wars like show or film or like movie or anything.
I feel like has it been done in games though?
It's been referenced in games, but
and what is the reference for BBY? So
before the Battle of Yavin.
Yeah.
It has been the unofficial. It's been the unofficial but official a way to kind of create a timeline of events in the Star Wars universe for feels like forever now. But it was Disney has made like charts and stuff of showing using BBY and all of that and ABY after the Battle of Yavin to kind of show like when big things happen, like this movie happened during this time, this show took place during this period, this is when this book takes place, etc. But it's never been used in any of the movies, so that was really cool to see.
Okay, cool. I didn't catch that at all. So, to me, of the 3 episodes, the 3rd episode was obviously the strongest, and because it had more tension. All the
more
first
action.
2, right? And to be fair, the first 2 episodes built up to the 3rd one, like a true movie would, right? First act, second act, and then 3rd act. But I thought it was handled extraordinarily well. It felt, we talk about Westerns. It's kind of like, you're in the town and here come the posse and you got to get out and you got to figure out how. Of course, they have, their own version of dynamite to blow things up. But I thought it was well done. And I liked that we got to see the tactics of the Empire characters, go north, go south, and go east. And, they split up and our or the guy the guy that we're following, Sierra and Karn, reminded me of the guy from Aliens. The you know what I mean? The green guy from Aliens. He wasn't colored green, he was just green. The one that had been on only simulated drops and stuff. Do you know who I'm talking about? Anyway, doesn't matter. I enjoyed that aspect of it. I like that they're bringing that into it, and we're not getting, we're getting a fuller picture with that, and they're taking some time, and they're taking the time to develop these characters. We better see what Bix some more. I liked her. I was really hoping she would be on that ship flying off with them.
Well, I I don't know how this is going to play out, but I almost feel like some of these characters might actually all become part of the rebellion after this or something, you know, because I even feel like the guy in like that's working in the, you know, at the ripping the stuff out and stuff, the factory workers or whatever.
Brasso, is this Brasso? Is that his name?
Yeah,
I
Brasso.
feel like all of them are. I feel like they might all become, because they all have talents, you know, when it comes to, and I think that's the whole point of the rebellion is like you have everybody has their talents. Like you have like Poe Dameron, you know, who could fly, you know, ships, and you have all these different people. Like the other guy can rip things apart and make stuff, so maybe he can help make ships and stuff.
And of course, he's the one that did the tying on to the.
Well, yeah. Well, and I think, actually, one of the Easter eggs was a possibility, but nobody could really confirm it. It's like looked like he was ripping apart pieces of like an AT-AT. So, so you could easily see him like, because I mean, we sort of know that they sort of like re-engineered certain things to be part of the rebellion. You know, we learned that a little bit in some of the other properties and stuff, and so it'll be kind of interesting how they sort of work together, sort of ragtag bunch of people to sort of bring about the rebellion and you know, to use things to their advantage.
And speaking of Brasso, wasn't that a beautiful shot of just all their gloves on the wall? You know, it was so simple, right? It's just a wall full of gloves, like, and they come out and grab their gloves, and it just looked
it felt like a real work environment.
Did
you know
it?
What I mean,
but it was quite beautiful though.
Yeah. Or I mean, I love the guy that was up in the thing that would hit the things.
Oh my gosh, the hammer guy.
And he was like, you know, and I don't know about you guys. I was hoping he was going to go all like, you know, kung fu with people or something at some point.
Maybe.
Maybe. I don't know, because it'd be like what
if he smashed some stormtrooper helmets?
Well, I was thinking he was going to be like the person in Mandalorian that forges the weapons and stuff. I thought he was at some point. I wasn't sure what they're going to do when we heard the little thing stop. I was like, are they going to start fighting? So I almost feel like, again, everybody's talents, because he's very limited in his talents. But anyway, it's a very beautiful shot, because I mean, I think Star Wars, we always have that. I don't know about you guys, if you think about it, like we always have those things where we see a certain area, like a Yavin, where the guy's up in the tall thing watching ships go by. You always have these people in certain areas, and it's just these beautiful shots of these different areas, but it also just felt kind of real, you know, because even when it comes to all the environments, like the you know, the bar area that he goes to in the very beginning, or even just the shop area that he goes to, or just all these different areas that, I don't know, it felt kind of new but cool in Star Wars, because I almost feel like we see a lot of the same stuff, and then when we try to inject something new, people complain like, oh my god, you know, like I'm tired of people talking about the stupid bikes and Boba Fett, Vespas or whatever. I mean, it's like you inject something new, but like, oh, that's not Star Wars. But I think it felt grounded, but it also kind of futuristic, you know. And then they also, like, I mean, there's literally an LED lamp you can buy from Walmart that he's looking in the ship at one point. You can actually, I think you can actually buy that same LED lamp from Walmart right now.
That's awesome.
Which is very fun. And I think somebody saw a kerosene lamp from like the 1980s or something in the background in the old house.
Perfect.
So,
yeah, so some of the things that were really cool was that beginning scene when you know, he's walking across the you know, the bridge or whatever it is with all the lights. It was really well done, and then he goes into the bar, and it was a great way to start the show. It's really interesting, and it was you didn't know what was going to happen when those two guys cornered him and stuff, and I liked how that was structured, and then it kind of took a little time between that and the finale, but not to the detriment. I'm you know, I'm saying that it's slow, but at the same time, I think it's not a detriment. I mean, this is really what I think. What'd you say? Like a niche you didn't know you need scratched, right? I think I feel that way too. It's like, this is, I like this version of Star Wars. I want to see more of this.
Yeah, and I absolutely love the the difference between that first world we go to, that very modern, like almost Blade Runner-y-esque like
Yeah.
aesthetic,
Mhm.
compared to the other planet that most of these episodes take place on. It's such a crazy difference in, you know, a very well off, very high tech, very empire centric, you know, world. Because even though the empire is not there, they say that they're aligned with the empire, and they say that, you know, as long as things go well and the security force keeps doing well, then empire governors and stormtroopers don't come and knock on their door. But then you go to the other planet that they're supposed to be watching over, and it's completely run down because they don't have those resources. They don't have everything, so it's a lot more Tatooine-y, you know. It's got it
Feels like
it's
Tatooine, yeah.
like, but without it being like Tatooine, you know. It's like the structures aren't, you know, the structures aren't modern. The structures aren't lights everywhere or very like sharp edges, you know. It's very rounded, very
Worn, yeah.
worn, very, and it's just, it's amazing to see that difference.
Yeah,
Well,
like even the doors of the transport that Stellan Skarsgård's Luthen is in, you know, you see all the scratches from where it's been opened and shut so many times. Really cool stuff.
Well, they also use a lot of old like 1980 CRT screens, and you know, a lot of the stuff from that technology. I mean, also one thing that we haven't talked about yet that I don't know if you guys noticed, but one of my favorite things is like one things I guess that kind of takes in a different direction is the music. That first episode is very synthy and it feels very Blade Runner-esque. But also there's a later there's one, I can't remember which part of one episode, maybe I'm in the second one, but there's a part where Cassian's going through like the junk field or whatever, and it's a literally drum set. It's like, and so I think we're so used to like the John Williams beautiful music, swelling and stuff, or every once in a while we hear the like you know, that kind of stuff. But there's almost like a freshness or a different type of music they use in different parts that I think adds a freshness to it as well, and I think also kind of separates it from the rest of the Star Wars thing. To where I was kind of like, because I was loving that the synthy music, you know, when he's going through the underworld. And then later on, when it's literally, it's like a literal, it sounds like a drum set actually in an empty room or something. And because they use these different types of music, you know, it had so much to it. Kind of like when we used to talk about like Loki and a lot of these other types of Marvel shows where they would use different types of music. But I want to say that's also a standout thing that kind of separates it from the Star Wars universe as well.
Yeah, was it Nicholas Britell is the composer for
this?
So
and so it kind of makes me excited to see how it's not like the same traditional type music. Maybe it's one of those things to where, because we're in the beginnings of the rebellion, maybe we'll get that swelling stuff later on. Although I have heard that the tone kind of, some people have already seen episode 4. They said episode 4 has a different tone to it, so that'll be kind of interesting where they go with that.
Yeah, and we know that there's going to be some characters. I mean, we're going to start getting more characters that are, you know, Mon Mothra. We know Moth. She's going to be a part of it, and so
there's going to be Kaiju.
Kaiju's coming in, and then go ahead.
And doesn't the first season isn't the first season supposed to take place over like 4 years or something like that, where it's like the first couple episodes are in like year 5 BBY, and then another couple episodes is 4 BBY, and another couple episodes is 3 BBY.
I think season, yeah, maybe it was like, I forget how they structured. I heard something along that line, but we're all going to get, you know, Saw Gerrera too, and that's going to be fun.
Yeah.
So we're going to get familiar characters. I think it's brave that they started out not doing that. So,
yeah. Although, you know,
you could argue Andor, Cassian's.
Well, Andor, well, yeah. I mean, outside of that, of course. But he did, you know, there's nobody else but him from Star Wars, right?
Yeah. Sure. I think it's going to be, I think it's, you know, I'm a little bit concerned because if they're going to be skipping around and how that's going to play out, you know, you know, because it's not really traditional what we're used to. So I hope that doesn't sort of disconnect us from how everything's playing out, or makes us lose kind of focus or lose the flow of everything.
Yeah, I did like his speech on how arrogant the Empire is, that he could just walk in there and they don't think
Well, that's that. I think that's that. That scene is one of the most well written scenes in
that whole segment.
universe.
That whole segment. Yeah,
and they kind of released that as a separate clip initially before the series came out, and it's well written, and but also fits the story behind Star Wars and how these the Imperials and a lot of these people in power are kind of idiots.
Spies. All right, let's go ahead and wrap this up. Let's give our score 1 to 5, and we'll pick a favorite scene. Slatman, sir, you are up first.
So I'm gonna give this a 5 as a whole.
Oh, shite. Okay, go.
I think it does an amazing job of building everything up, and just that ending is just so fantastic. And my favorite scene is actually when all of the when all the townsfolk are like drumming and like beating on things.
The reckoning.
And the reckoning, and Cassian's adopted mom, I don't remember her name, I apologize. She's talking to Marva. Yeah, she's talking to the security folks about that, and it's like, do you know what happens when it stops? Like that whole scene is just
you literally stole my favorite scene. That's so awesome. That was I loved it. I loved her reaction, because the one guy's a bit bully, but the other guy was like, what happens? And she goes, she knew she had him. I like that. That's great acting. Well, yeah, it was great. Good choice. Christopher G. Moore, your score, your favorite scene?
I'll give it a 4.5. I can't give it a full 5. I had issues with Cassian Andor, how he reacts during that last fight scene. He just came off very weak and didn't idiotic, and that kind of took me out of it. I got annoyed with him, maybe that's just a character choice because he's trying to sort of be more confident, I guess. But he's like, I don't get this, and it's like, shut up. But other than that, I think everything else kind of is very interesting, falls into place. I love all the characters. I care about all the characters, so that's kind of interesting. Yeah. And I kind of want to see where all these characters go after this. So as for favorite scene, you know what? I'm gonna have to say the conversation he has in the thing before that, the whole action scene goes down. I think that's, even though it's a conversation and it's Star Wars, you mostly want to pick for like, this or that, initially I was going to pick where he's walking down and there's like the prostitute bubbles, because I just thought I thought that's a weird thing to pick as a favorite scene, but I don't know. But I'll say, like, because I watched that clip before I watched the series, and I watched it again, and it's still very impactful and a very well written scene, and really gets down to the nitty gritty of what the rebellion's about, and how you can sort of fight people that are just think you're beneath them because they don't think you can do anything. So I really love that. I think it's a really well acted and well written scene, and really is the foundation of the strengths of this series. That's it's a little bit darker and a little bit more serious, but to me it's still Star Wars, no matter what people say.
I'm going to give it a 4.0. I and that's not saying I didn't like it, because 4.0 is very strong. I think this has got a lot going for it, and I think I'm going to love it toward the end of the season. But even though I've given Mandalorian and even Obi-Wan better scores, I think I prefer what they're doing here, I guess, in comparison, right? I mean, I loved Mandalorian when it first came out, and but we've kind of gotten 3 iterations of that, 3 or 4 iterations, and I'm fine with that. And I'm not going to, I'm looking forward to 3, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the things they're doing. But I like this alternative, and I like that we're getting a lot of it, and I like that we're really getting into the characters. And yeah, so I'm going to give it 4. My favorite scene, though, I'm going to go with okay. So they're trying to do a pep talk to all the Imperials, right? They have like 12 of them, right? There's a squad of 12, and of course there's the one officer, and then our guy, right? The guy that I've been mentioning all along. And this is where the comparison to the guy from Aliens is he tries to give a pep talk, and it is the worst pep talk anybody's ever given to a team. And they're practically falling asleep while they listen to it. And of course the lieutenant guy's like, "You did good, yeah, it was great." But I just loved that it shook his confidence, but yet you could see him recover from it. I mean, there was so much going on with that character from the beginning. Really interesting on how that character is going to grow. Because he starts off actually going against his superior, who told him, let it go, and ended. He'll probably get some shit because of the way it ended, but even toward the end, because he was like, he didn't know how to react when they got away. He just stood there, and the other guy's like, "We got to get out of here," and he's just like, "Urgh." I'm very curious about what's going to happen with him.
Yeah, well, I think he was sort of seeing his career falling apart before his eyes, because the guy's like, "Don't do anything while I'm gone." Yep. And he screws everything. Although, the second in command guy, where you've seen him before?
No, where?
He's Commissioner Savage from the Batman.
Oh, okay, all right, very good. He's great. I like his
he's awesome.
Gruffness and stuff. Yeah. All right, so we will be back for the remaining series, the remaining episodes. How many? There's 12 episodes, so we've got quite a few. We're going to be going all the way through to Thanksgiving with this. How you like that? All the way through November. It's kind of awesome. There you go. All right, well, that's our review of Andor. Episodes 1 through 3.
Andor,
or
the movie Star Wars,
and Rogue One backwards.
Stop.
And one rogue.
One rogue. Oh God.
Named Cassian.
All right. I was gonna say thank you, Chris and Christopher, for joining me, but I don't know. I might take that back. No, seriously, thank you for joining.
This is not the podcast you're looking for. What?
What? Let's say goodnight.
Good night.